Hello, and welcome to our session, Investing in Water Innovation. I'm Anna Huber, broadcasting to you live from the World Economic Forum headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm thrilled to be a moderator today. Water plays a critical role in virtually every aspect of human life. It ensures public health, grows food, and generates the energy that keeps us all warm. Still today, millions of people do not have access to fresh water in water-stressed countries. But also countries where water was historically less of a concern have recently been forced to restrict their populations on its usage. Water, our most precious resource, is under extreme restraint, impacted by climate change, population growth, and overuse of major industries. Or, to put in a simple, straightforward sentence, we pollute and deplete our water resources faster than they're able to clean and replenish themselves. Yet, as more people are starting to understand the value of water, experts are foreseeing an increasing interest from non-typical water actors, including tech companies, climate, and alternative energy investors in the water sector. On top of it, new regulations, partnerships, and technologies are emerging to protect our freshwater resources. The gap between water's economic value and the current level of investment in promising startups means there's a massive opportunity for investors who are eager to deliver impact alongside financial returns. Water's economic value has been priced at approximately $58 trillion, equal to 60% of global GDP. So, the best time to invest in water is now. Here at UpLink, the early-stage innovation platform of the World Economic Forum, we help startups working in different thematic areas, including water, and connect them to business partners, investors, and other organizations in order for them to scale. We have partnered with Indian global tech company HCL for the 5-year, $15 million Aquapreneur Innovation Initiative to source and scale high-potential water startups through our UpLink Innovation Challenges, as well as build a first-of-its-kind water innovation ecosystem. Since being selected as a top innovator onto UpLink, the first 2 cohorts of 20 aquapreneurs have collectively raised $70 million in grants and funding. As we enter the 3rd year of this initiative, we're intensifying our efforts to highlight the water sector as a prime opportunity for impact-driven investors. We recently launched UpLink's first ever community paper, Investing in Water, a Practical Guide. If you're an investor or just curious about the world of water, I'd encourage you to start by reading that paper. We have even more work in the water investing space coming up, but first, let's take a look at what we've achieved in the first 2 years of this initiative.
More than 95% of natural disasters in the world are actually water-related. So we cannot actually address the climate crisis if we don't address water, and specifically fresh water.
When we looked at this, we felt the best way to do this is rather than do any projects, to see what we could do to foster innovation in this space, because as a technology company, innovation is one of the key things that we drive.
Being selected as a top innovator really was a boost of confidence, morale, and obviously all the support that comes for being part of the UpLink community. It's making a huge difference.
Fundraising in the water sector is not easy. We have been working especially with public funds, with grants and innovation subsidies that understand the impact of what we are doing. And now that we see traction, is that we see more interest from the investment perspective from investors on our solution.
Today, we are building on the momentum of this initiative by hearing from experts in this space. In this panel, we'll talk about the opportunities, challenges, and gaps in investing in the water sector. Joining me here today in the studio, Kelven, investment manager at Emerald Technology Ventures. Based in Singapore, Kelven defines the water and wastewater investment strategy for Emerald Ventures, one of the foremost venture capital firms in the world. We also have Romeo Bütler, principal at Verve Ventures. Based in Zurich, Verve Ventures is a European deep tech VC investor. Romeo has led Verve's first investment in a water tech startup. And joining us remotely from Chile is one of our top innovators or aquapreneurs from the Zero Water Waste UpLink Challenge, Catalina Pfenniger, strategy director at Kran Nanobubble. Kran Nanobubble harnesses the power of tiny bubbles to make water processes more efficient. Welcome, Catalina, Romeo, and Kelven.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so to start, Kelven, a lot of our viewers might be wondering, why is not more investment already going into the water sector?
Well, I think there are a few reasons or preconceptions, like water being very conservative, long sales cycle, risk-adverse clients, and the question is, can it really generate venture returns? I think that has really changed over the last 5-10 years. And I think we'll talk more about this, but definitely water is becoming really interesting.
Great. So then on that note, why should investors be paying attention to water as an investment opportunity?
Good question. I think I start from a broad level. So we know water is a critical resource for life, but good quality, good availability is important for industrial development, community health as well. So we know that if we just look at businesses, a lot of them are facing challenges with this. You have competing demand from other users, industrialization, climate change, aging in water infrastructure, right? So increasingly, they are focusing on solutions that are sort of inside the fence, their own operations, but also outside the fence. So they're looking at solutions that could act across the value chain. So one example is collective action. So they look at watershed management. And one example is that they work with utilities to deploy leak detection technologies, sort of to reduce water losses and guarantee availability. And I think from here, it means that water tech companies have now a diverse group of customers, right? It's no longer just limited to the municipal sector. And if I bring it down to another level, if we just look at the startups themselves, I really want to point out that the water sector is quite good at attracting professionals from other sectors. So one example is Indra. They have automotive background founders, right? So they use that mindset to sort of, when they build out the reactors, make it easy to maintain. The way they produce it has that automotive production line kind of a mindset. So that allows, very innovative, differentiated tech. And when you combine a more growing base of such good startups and with the increasing importance of water as of economic significance, I think then that's where you see more M&A activities from larger strategics. So all in all, I think that is a reason why we should, or investors should look at water.
Thanks so much, Kelven. So on the note of new investors joining the water world, Romeo, Verve's portfolio is quite varied, from direct air capture to robotics. But as I mentioned in your intro, you recently invested in a water startup called Pure Affinity. Can you tell us more about the factors that went into that decision? How does it fit into your broader investment strategy?
For sure. Thank you, Anna. So Verve is a pan-European tech investor. We are investing in companies or in founders actually, that are solving humanity's biggest challenges using technology. That is our tagline. That is really the type of companies that we're looking for. We're doing this headquartered out of Zurich, focused on 4 different areas. One is industrial tech, one is future of computing, one is health and bio, and the big one is climate. And climate tech is obviously in everyone's mouth these days, and is a very up-and-coming investment space as a whole. And within climate, we're looking at resources. And we heard a few stats and KPIs earlier in the video. Water is the biggest resource globally speaking, and therefore quite naturally caught our attention as an interesting investment space. And Kelven went into a few aspects on why this is. In the specific case of Pure Affinity, the investment was done in 2019. Honestly, it was very opportunistic. I just personally, being a biotechnologist, loved the way they used biology and applied it in a very different field, a bit into what you said with regards to the automotive people that go into another sector. So they use this receptor ligand principle to actually try and bind PFAS molecules, which is 5 years later today, a very much topic that gets global awareness.
Yeah. Great. So maybe a follow-up on that one. Have you observed global trends when it comes to non-investors, non-water investors, as we call them, so maybe climate investors starting to invest in water?
Mm-hmm. The short answer is yes. The long answer, if I may, so when I joined VC almost a decade ago by now, climate investing was more for the hippies and was a bit associated with we're not going to generate much returns here. Almost had a bit of a tag of philanthropy as well. And then there was the whole bull run on software as a service companies throughout the years 19, 20, and so on. And by now, what I see from a lot of, at least European generalist investors, and I'm sure that's the same for the US as well, is that there are more and more also being interested in technology-driven companies, fundamental technology-driven companies, climate tech being one of them, and water, therefore, quite naturally, again, being a subset of it. Just recently, I spoke to two other trusted investors out of Europe that are also actively screening the market and are exploring opportunities. Yeah.
Great news for the water sector, we might say. Kelven, what's your take on this? Have you, in terms of trends for non-water investors, starting slowly trickle into the water sector?
Yeah, definitely. I see that trend. So out of our office in Singapore, which is where I sit, I do see on the cap tables of companies like family offices starting to appear. So maybe I speak about Asia, right? So it's a big group of family offices, and the second, third generation of the family members running the offices are definitely very in tune with the sustainability topic. And there in Asia, big part of the world population, a lot of the continent face some water stress, so they are also aware of these water challenges. Yeah. So I think family offices are definitely coming into the picture, both investing in startups that are in Asia as well as investing in global startups that have the capability to solve these challenges within the Asia continent. So that's a very promising trend. Typically, they start a little bit earlier, like the seed stage. But the ones that have more experience, we also start to see them moving into the Series A, which is a good sign as well, because Series A sometimes is like the big gap of water investments, right, to help the water startups there. So I think, it's a very promising trend that I see.
Great. And just on that note, so UpLink is, as you mentioned, the gap on Series A. This is what UpLink is specifically focused on. Catalina, we'd love to hear your take on this as well. From your perspective as a Latin American startup, how do you see the current investment landscape? Any unusual actors joining and so on?
Hello. Yes, I shared with Kelven and Romeo what they say in Europe and in Asia. What we have seen is the same evolution in investment in terms of increasing impact investment in Latin America and in Chile. I'm based in Puerto Varas in the North Patagonia. But I would say that it's with a smaller level of maturity, that it's in the first stages. What I see with good enthusiasm is that impact finance and impact investment is moving towards finance first. Romeo mentioned it. They're putting the same principles of venture capital towards impact. And this is also very visible in family offices. There's a study from last year in the family offices that today in Chile, 75% of family offices are declaring that they are investing in impact endeavors or impact investment. And the tendency is this is growing year by year. So I see that is increasing, but what I can't see yet, it's a specific for water. We are getting into impact investment, we are getting into environment. I would say that Latin America has a lot to do with education. It's also related with the context, but environment impact, climate tech, it's also something that it's increasing year by year. And hopefully for all of the entrepreneurs that are working in this, like us, it's going to be a tendency that keeps growing.
Yes, well, hopefully if it follows the path of Europe, as we've seen with what Romeo mentioned, but also Asia, as Kelven mentioned, hopefully for Latin America also there will be more of a shift into water as the biggest resource. So Catalina, we'd love to hear about Kran Nanobubble and its solution as one of our entrepreneurs. Can you tell us more about it?
Well, Kran Nanobubble is a nanobubble technology company where we offer efficiency solution for water-related processes. How do we do it? By harnessing the potential of nanobubbles. Nanobubbles are these tiny, ultra-fine bubbles, invisible to the human eye, that change the physical-chemical properties of water. And by doing so, we can improve water-related processes. What do we mean by improve water-related processes? It's making them more efficient or more productive. We were discussing before that water is at the crossroads of many production processes, of many sectors. But to give you an example, we can work, for example, with agriculture, where by irrigating with nanobubbles, we have seen yield increases of 19% in apple trees. These are cases that we've done with nanobubbles. But we have been also very happy or enthusiastic about what we see in the industrial sector. We've been working with different accelerators, one of them 100+ accelerators with AB InBev, big corporation, global corporation in charge of addressing water challenges. And with them, we've been able to reduce in one process, in one plant, in the bottle washer after 4 years, a reduction of 20% of the water consumption. That means in that process, more than 3 million liters of water saved. So when you think that, and then you replicate it to other processes within the same plant or to other plants, the impact starts being huge. So that's one example. And what's also, and just to close the idea of the huge potential of nanobubbles, is also that when you think in a water-related process, you don't only think in water. You have water when you can think the amount of water, so quantity, the quality of water, but you have also other aspects related, meaning chemicals, because in a water-related process, you add chemicals or you use energy, whether it is to put temperature, to move the water. And in this case, also with AB InBev in a biological reactor for wastewater treatment, we managed to have a more efficient process, saving 19% of the energy of that process. That's also something huge, because the ones that are in wastewater treatment knows that energy is huge impact in the OpEx of water treatment. So those are 2 examples of how are we addressing the efficiency and the productivity problem of water-related processes.
Thanks so much, Catalina. And I love how you touched on the point of water being a nexus topic. So it can never be seen in isolation, right? So it's water and agriculture, water and energy. So one of our investors said, if you invest in climate, you already are investing in water, but it goes the same for agriculture or energy. There's always a water element. And I thought you highlighted that really nicely. Thanks so much for sharing your solution. We're really excited to have you as one of our aquapreneurs and with us here today as well. Let's shift a bit to a slightly different topic, but still on the note of aquapreneurs. So Kelven, Emerald Ventures has already invested in 3 of our aquapreneurs to date: Indra Water, Kilimo, and Binnovate Technologies. So we'd love to hear, because we know you often invest with other partners who are not necessarily water investors. What do first-time investors need to know about the water space?
Well, I think it's key that when you look at a water investment, that you don't just look at the cost of the water and gauge the ROI, right? Because like Catalina mentioned, there are all these productivity, performance improvements, even business continuity. So like, for example, with Indra, the way that they treat and recycle water for their industrial clients that are in India, and they sort of sometimes face some disruptions in water supply. To have that system, it allows the business to run more or less as usual than be dependent on the availability of supply. Kilimo is a good example as well. I think there it's quite smart where they tie water savings in irrigation to corporate commitments in water stewardship. So it's a very innovative business model. They capture value for both the agriculture stakeholders as well as for the company. So I think, yeah, it moves beyond just the cost of water. That's my main message that first-time investors should consider.
Yeah, No, great. And I'm just thinking of we ran this workshop series on water investment, and there were a few more things where, first of all, we said, invest with others, as you've done already, and then be systematic, not only opportunistic. So water, there are regulations to be mindful of, but once you understood them and you've worked with strong water teams, there is a good opportunity for investment. So some of our tips for our first-time water investors. Romeo, in your opinion, as a generalist investor, what returns can be generated in the water space?
It's a very good question, and I don't have the crystal ball here, so I can't answer it with an absolute number. I wish I could, and Kelven probably as well. I think what is required to be able to generate returns is what is often being called the holy trinity of corporates, governments, and consumers, each pushing each other into a positive flywheel. We heard just I think last week, in a country that is considered very clean as Switzerland, I read that cows in the eastern part of Switzerland are now contaminated with PFAS. And I thought that contamination issue is not going to affect Switzerland. So I think consumers are starting to are being more aware, partially also due to initiatives like UpLink. At the same time, you have governments that are issuing policies, right? Pushing, water consumption reduction or more regulations with certain thresholds that water has to satisfy in terms of purity. And thirdly, corporates will have to innovate. Corporates will have to go with the flow and will have to, no matter if they want to or whether it's a good return on investment or not, they will just have to satisfy those needs coming on the one hand from consumers as well as from the governments. And that's then positively impacting the other two aspects. And I think that's then also where the returns are being generated. Are we there yet? Probably still a few years to come, but again, we're investing in early stage companies, so I think it's right about the right time to jump on that wave now.
Maybe just to add to Romeo's point on returns, right? So it's still undeniable that in the water sector, the sales cycle could be usually a bit longer than in other sectors. So an investor that goes in has to be a bit more patient and also work with the startups and together find a meaningful valuation as they support the company. So because the pathway to commercialization could be a bit longer. So with that, you want to make sure that the company is able to raise money in multiple stages to get to where they want to go to. So I think that ultimately, that ground on the feet on the ground would also help to achieve good returns down the road.
And if I may jump in on this one as well, that's also what Catalina said, right? Generalist investors, classical VC metrics being applied to this sector is exactly what Kelven said, right? So this equity story, if I can give one advice to every entrepreneur out there, I think make sure your equity story is clean and listen to people that are applying this from a different sector, such as the tech sector. Building robots is an equally long sales cycle as compared to, but it's not the same as B2B software companies that many VCs are otherwise used to.
Thank you both. So Catalina, bringing you also into this conversation here, we know that Kran is preparing to launch a Series A funding round later this year, a major milestone for the company. Congratulations. How do you see the global water community helping you in this journey?
I think in my personal experience, in our personal experience at Kran, the global community is key. And I think it's not only for being able to share and to gain visibility and to gain access, all the work that we do with UpLink, by attending, by learning a lot about the other aquapreneurs, sharing experiences and learning the language. I think that's also one of the takeaways and the recommendation for others, but also it's something that I learned myself is to raise funds, we need to understand the funding context. Everybody has a different specialty. So we need to be very clear about our value proposition, our roadmap, what do we need to do for the next level, and what do we want to do with the money we get to be able to achieve it over time, keeping in mind that we're entrepreneurs and we're a business. So it's for me, I think it's natural, the idea of finance first, because it makes sense. And we, as a small startup or business with 5-year experience already in the market and working with big corporations, we need to move into that way. So I've been learning the language, being able to communicate about water, the nanobubbles that are complex in an easiest way, but also understanding the vision of the counterparts to be able to build it together. Kelven mentioned something, and we were working this week together with our board of directors, that we need to work it together. It's investing in a company, it's building some bonds that will allow us as an entrepreneurs to give this company to the next level, to scale it, to bring it global. But there are things that we need to learn on the way. So money, of course, is a facilitator for scaling, finance, but also experience. There's a lot that means building the structure that it's going to make us possible to grow the way we want. So that's our...
Yeah, that really resonates.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Just to finish, the work that we are doing with UpLink, it has been great for this aspect of gaining the visibility, having access to conversation, high level, and like-minded people that share the same kind of interest. So thank you
so much. And I do have to start wrapping up now. So a very quick, snappy recommendation from all of the three of you. If you were to meet today a first-time investor for water or an innovator seeking funding, what is the one thing you would tell them? Maybe starting with you, Kelven.
Sure. I think, UpLink, like I want to mention that Kilimo, we found it through this program, right, Aquapreneur. So definitely engage with platforms like yours, or even accelerators like Imagine H2O. I mean, you guys already gather the regulators, entrepreneurs, policymakers, investors. And it's like this global village, right, that you can talk and share knowledge, and I'm sure a lot of good collaboration will come out of it. But if I just sneak in one more recommendation is to co-invest with us, right? Like come talk to us, partner together, and we're happy always to share about what we know about the sector and to hear outside views, and then together we can learn together along the journey.
Thanks so much. Romeo?
I think for me it is the Western Hemisphere has to accept that water has a value. I grew up here in Switzerland where it was always for free, and it still is for free, luckily. But there is a strong value to it, and I think the investor ecosystem needs to understand it. And I think along the value chain of water, be it from origination, distribution, consumption, analytics, or end of life, you have to find your own spot as an investor where you feel comfortable and where you believe there is value to be captured. And I think, that's it.
Great. And very briefly, Catalina, from your side, anything else for an innovator seeking funding? Anything you'd like to add here?
Yeah, no, I think I mentioned it before, but I would say make a plan, have a clear vision of where you want to go, and make sure you're able to transmit that with all the information. So having a clear roadmap with clear milestones, I think it will be helpful in building this relation.
Thank you. And that brings our session to a close. A big thank you to Kelven, Romeo, and Catalina for your active participation, all your insightful contributions, and your continued commitment to advancing water innovation and investment. I want to thank you also, the audience, for joining us online. We hope this discussion has brought to light the insignificant opportunities that await any investor who is eager to make a tangible impact. Every activity has a water footprint with boundless avenues for innovation. Water will only become increasingly important over time. Acting early provides the opportunity for greater impact and greater returns, or in other words, the best time to invest in water is now. Visit UpLink to learn more about our aquapreneurs, and make sure to read our report, Investing in Water, a Practical Guide. We have more work in this area planned, so be sure to follow our UpLink social media channels or sign up for our UpLink newsletter on our website. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.